Yeah, of course. Well, and then I'll talk. So everyone, thank you for joining YongmudoUnited. We're going to run another one of our instructor seminars. Today, what we're going to do is I'm going to do a brief warm up, about 5 minutes or so. Half the people here don't have partners or space to do much throwing, so you're probably going to be just walking through stuff anyway, and that's totally cool. So we're going to take about 5 minutes for warm up. Then I'm going to take about 25-30 minutes for counter throw stuff. And the first segment of that, what I want to do is not really do a review of the first 6, but if there are any questions at all on those first 6, let's ask them and see where people are and use that as a chance before we, move much forward. And then maybe we'll get through 7, 8, and 9, or 7 and 8, I don't know. And then we're going to go to do roundtable on roundhouse kicks. And so we have, and I said that we have Sarah who's going to do one segment, and Kobey that's going to do a segment, and then let's see. Oh, Vera is logging in. So we'll see. I don't know who we're going to have do the third segment yet, but I'm going to pick someone who hopefully will spend 5 minutes just talking about how they teach roundhouse kick. Maybe for that segment, if you have someone you can kick or something that you can use for a target, I go back to the old Elvis song. If you don't have a partner, just use a wooden chair, because I saw Apex using, high back chairs and kicking over them and all that sort of stuff. So it works. So, it's both a bad dad joke and hopefully helpful. So we're going to do warm up, counter throws, questions, counter throws, learn, and then roundtable on roundhouse kicks. So any questions or anything before we get started? Hi, y'all. We are watching, but not dressed up. Okay, Vera, are you going to work out, or are you just not dressed? If you're not dressed, then just turn it on and join us if whatever. Okay, are you going to work out?
No, we're in a cramped space. Ray and I want to just offer our support and watch. This is why I had turned off the camera, because us staring is not as productive, unless you like that. We could.
You know what? I got a dog that stares at me every time I sit and eat anything. So yeah, exactly. So if you want to do that to me, Ray cannot though. I feel like he's going to attack me if he does that. So.
Wait, where's Ray? Oh, he's watering the plant.
Okay, all right. Let's start our warm up. So we're not going to do very much intensive here. We're just going to do a quick warm up. So starting with your necks, just nice circles. Eyes open if you want, or eyes closed, helps with the balance. Switch direction. Looking left and right. Ears to shoulders. Good, up and down. Good, just the shoulders, big circles forward. Squeeze it forward, squeeze it back, engage back muscles and chest muscles. Add in the elbows. Whole arm. Again, you're squeezing. It's not really about speed for me. I'm just trying to get muscles engaged. And down to the elbows, nice circles. Down to the wrists. Backwards on the wrists. Backwards on the elbows, and whole arm backwards. And down to just the shoulders. Good. Now twists, easy twists. I'm not going fast. It's more giving a chance to engage the leg muscles, engage the back muscles, rather than trying to force it and get a pop or two in my back. Switch up to elbow strikes. Knees are bent, nice rotation, push it through. Good, down to the hips. Head more or less in one spot, getting nice big circles. Switch direction. Down to the knees. Good. Bouncing on your left foot, pick up your right. Nice circles with the ankles. If you want to close your eyes, then you can work even more on your balance. which is good because then you're engaging muscles in your leg, your ankle and knee and glutes on the other side. And easy kick extensions. So working through some kick positions, extending the toes, pulling back, maybe throwing a side kick or an instep kick. Good. And switch feet, stay bouncing on the right, picking up the left, just nice circles. And extensions, kicking positions. Good. All right, feet about hip width apart, hands reaching up, forward fold. Bend the knees, stand up, slowly stacking the vertebra, hands reaching high again, forward fold. And plant those hands, walk your feet back or walk the hands forward so you're in a high plank. Low plank, upward dog, roll the toes under, downward dog, pushing your chest towards your knees or shins, stretching out your hamstrings and calves. If you want to walk the dog, alternating the feet, go ahead. Bend the knees, come back to a high plank. Low plank, upward dog, downward dog, bend the knees, bring the feet up to the hands, standing up, shake it out. Not a lot of stretching, but we're going easy. It's almost Christmas. No one wants to get hurt before Christmas or New Year's or whatever your holiday is. What, there's like 17 major holidays or whatever. All right, that's what they tell us at the schools. Okay, so first thing I want to start off is just questions. Any questions on the first, we went through the first 6 counter throws. So we had spring hip countered by Hanegoshi Gaeshi. We had sweeping hip countered by your choice of hip throws, sometimes changing hip throw. Then we had lifting, pulling hip throw, countered by sacrifice throw, one arm shoulder throw, countered by monkey on the back valley drop. Number 5 is floating drop, countered by Uchimata. And then we went through number 6 real quick last time, which was, sorry, I'm going through it too quickly to remember, shoulder wheel counter, fireman carry or shoulder wheel countered by stomach throw. Any questions on any of those? Like people practicing at home afterwards. We've been doing it for like 3 months now, so maybe you've had a chance to do it with a partner. Are there any questions?
The eternal back and forth we have between Rick and Dave and I is about number 1, and how much does the partner jump and how much do you time it together and how much can you make it work? I remember when we did number 1 with you, the way you showed it seemed very effective to me, but that's still the question that we have every time we try to practice it. How much do you coordinate? How much does it naturally work?
So my feeling on that one is we tend to slow down that transition after the block a lot so that we can demonstrate the counter very cleanly. So you can certainly up the pace on that transition a bit. That said, you've got someone who's coming in and they get kind of jammed and they're trying to stand up. But what you're doing is, you know, you can just do your, we call at Philly, we call it the disco stew, because I mean, I don't actually understand the reference, but it has something to do with popping the hips into it. So you're doing a little bit of lift, but you're popping the hips up and then sweeping out the legs afterwards. So you don't have to get them to jump too much. At Berkeley, so I'll talk a little bit, then we'll do it once just to talk, you know, we'll demonstrate what I'm thinking. At Berkeley, we had to do a little bit of extra jump because the direction of the turn really required your partner to kind of spiral out so they can land nicely. So that required a little bit more jump to make it clean. But you know, if you want a less clean fall, fine. Or if you want to go the other direction, fine. You don't need to have quite as much jump anyway. So we're going to go through and do this. So I'm going to attack, and we're going to do number 1, which is spring hip. So hori twiggy. Yes, you're going to do the hori twiggy, and then I'll do hori twiggy dechi.
Hori twiggy, spring.
Puss.
Us.
All right, so now for the counter, and then we can see how that talk helped. Hori twiggy dechi. Puss.
Us.
So that was going left foot slides. Let's do it right foot, which is how I first learned it, and then we'll see how that looks. Hori twiggy dechi. Puss.
Us.
Yeah. So it looks like when you go with the right foot, that's when you need to add a little bit of jump because there's such a big spin. But with the left foot, it just seems more natural with the left foot.
Yeah.
To me.
I mean, I'll give my opinion, which is she didn't jump on the second one. I had a nice pull with a nice sketch and got it, but we'll let her say.
That was going to be what I was going to say. I didn't jump for either of those.
Okay.
I did my best as an Uki to be compliant, but I wasn't assisting
Okay.
more
All right.
than it
Yeah.
would take for me to just take that throw normally. So
I mean,
Go ahead.
in my experience, it's not a jump. It's the person is actually trying to drive into the first throw. So if they're really driving into that throw, they are projecting themselves upward as one does when throwing, but they're not like trying to cheat the technique. They're trying to do their own technique, and then it's countered.
I agree with that because also on the example, and I practice run that Rob and I just did, there was not really any pause between, like as I was coming in for that throw, there was no pause. So I didn't have to think very hard about how I was going to help him get the throw because it was already happening. So maybe a slower demonstrative technique, you might need a little more help, but.
And I think one of the hardest things on all these counters is getting the grip that then allows you to do what you need to do. So if we just rotate this way, she's coming in for the throw. I have to go from punching to getting this grip to dropping, and this hand also has to get a grip. And so that's the hardest part on a lot of these counters is getting the grip you need to do the throw. And so once you start getting better at that and you practice with your partner and you know where they're going, then I think a lot of this will get easier.
I always find, because I was trying to teach this to, we have 2 white first down black belts that we're starting to think about. I was starting to teach it. And Rick and I were having the same conversation we have every time we start doing the counter throws again about number 1. The others, they make more sense to me now, maybe because I've done them so often. But number 1, every time it's like, how much do we jump? How much does it naturally fit in? How much? So I'm going to use that snippet of you doing both. I think I'm going to like cut that and have that in the corner as I teach.
Okay.
These are your options.
Very good.
That was very helpful seeing the 2 of them next to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I wanted to ask. We don't need to keep talking about it.
Cool. Okay. Other questions? Any other questions? Sometimes the old professor in me says, if I just stand here quietly long enough, someone will ask a question. All right. No questions. Let's go ahead and we're going to pick up with number 7. All right. So remember on all these, the basics, we get set up in our Taekwondo style ready stance. Whoever's doing the technique is going to call it out. For the primary throw, I like to call it out in Korean and then in English. And that just makes sure that if the Korean is messed up or, because some of them do sound an awful lot alike because, we're not native Korean speakers. This just makes sure we're all on the same page and no one has to think too hard. Okay. So the first number 7 is Bitongyo Chigi, which is forward body drop. So Bitongyo Chigi, forward body drop. She's going to demonstrate it. Just like 16 steps, we're going to get set. So
Bitongyo Chigi, forward body drop.
And we do right kick, right punch. And also remember that once I do the kick, look for the angle coming off, especially if you're new joining us. Watch for, I mean, you might call it a 45, and hopefully you'll be able to see it because of the different matte colors, how far we cross from blue to black. So just keep that in mind, how much we're rotating to get in and under so we can get nose over toes. All right, again.
Chitango chicken, forward body drop.
Puss.
Puss.
And hopefully you saw how much I came around, right? Good. Okay. That's the basic. The counter is just a basic major outer reach. You know what, everyone, most of you have partners, practice that. If you do not have partners, so if you don't have partners, if you have partners, go practice. If you don't have partners, here's what I do in my basement when I'm by myself, is I put down a couple of rags and I'm like, okay, these are my feet. So I go 1, 2, all right, now I get here and I go Bidangyo Chigi, forward body drop. And I go 1, 2, 3, and that way I can think about my footwork. So if you don't have a partner, using a wooden chair in this case is not a good idea, but a couple of socks maybe. All right, take a few seconds, practice that a couple of times. Think about getting around.
Chitango chicken, forward body drop.
Puss. Done good, Chiggy. Forward body drop. Puss. Trying to work on Korean forward body drop, which is apparently a little different.
How is it?
It's less getting up and then dropping down a little bit more, just coming around. Yeah.
Okay.
One more time. Be done good, Chiggy. Forward body drop. Puss. Oops, sorry. All right, any questions so far? Kobey has a question, yeah.
Yeah, so in a lot of the other ones, we've been sort of ambivalent about left foot forward, right foot forward, as long as you either step or slide into the throw. This one, it seemed, this isn't so much a question as a statement. It seems to me that ending up with your right foot forward is much more important on this one, because otherwise you have to step and then do the back step turn, and that like seems like it takes way too long.
Yeah, so agree. So that's where, and that's where Amanda also did it, and where I was doing it when we did the demo, was Beyond Good Chiggy forward body drop is, I like to be right foot forward so that I can step deep with this right foot and slide in and turn. Now that said, if I was here and step in, obviously now it becomes a little easier to get the rotation that I need. So I'll say it depends on what kind of forward body drop you like to do and what kind of entry you're thinking of. So your choice, but my personal preference, I agree with you. Okay, let's do the counter. So the counter is major outer reach. Remember, on a lot of the counter throws, what we're thinking of doing is one of two basic things. Either one, we're going to block their momentum somehow, and we kind of stall things out and then take them somewhere like we did on number 1. Or 2, we're going to go around, we're going to bypass them. This one is one where I'm going to try to block as much as I can. So the first option. So, Bijango Chiki Dechi. Boom, boom. She's going to step in, block. I'm going to step in with my left foot. My left hand goes into her lower back. My right hand is trying to grab whatever I can. I've actually grabbed just about her elbow, okay? That's the closest thing I can get, and that'll work okay. If I could get to her collar instead, that would be great, but you know, take what you can get. Okay, so I blocked her in here. Now what I need to do is I need to keep her off balance. You notice how the line of her shoulders is slightly behind her heels. If I kind of let go, she'll kind of fall backwards. But if I let go, she's gonna stand back up, and now I'm in trouble. I can't do the major outer reach because she's too far forward. So what I'm gonna do from here is I'm gonna readjust my right foot. We'll rotate in a second, but it's a big step with the left foot as I lift her up with my hands. Boom. Now I can do an easy major outer reach and take her down. All right, we're gonna do it one more time, and then we'll rotate and do it again. Bijango Chiki Dechi. Now we're going to do it on the other, we're going to rotate around 180. Ijango chigi dechi. Block, step, jack her up, major out of reach, clear out. Questions? All right, so remember the big thing that we've got to do is she's coming in, block, keep her hips forward, try to pull back on this hand and keep her shoulders back. Step, I'm keeping my chin past my toes so that I'm falling this way, lifting her up, keeping my hands in front of my line of my shoulders, and reach. Okay, questions? All right, no questions. Let's go ahead and try it. Feel it a few times. Block, step, sweep. Your turn. So you've already stepped around, which means you may have a hard time. You're not behind me. So I would step into me. Boom. Yeah, block there. Now you've got a bigger turn.
Now the left hand is coming to the
Yep. Yep. Hand. Puss. Yeah. Probably you. So I don't think this is one you can bypass because I don't know if you would have enough momentum here to pull them, because remember they're coming in like, I mean, they're coming around here. So I feel like you have to block on this one, I think.
Right.
What your first step was pretty deep. Like as you were blocking, you were like blocking to the side.
Right.
And maybe that would work. But
Okay.
yeah.
But not so much stuff. Okay.
All right, questions? Any questions? I wasn't watching, I was working with Amanda. All right, how's this? Everybody do it. Yeah, a bunch of you have partners. Let's see what's going on. Uh-oh. Vera, that was mean.
I was going to ask.
Okay, ask.
Is there a preference, or maybe because it's against the rules, when you fit into the counter throw form, that you just can't do a clip around the neck, so that when you do the stop, clip around the neck, so when you turn around, rather than hanging onto the uniform. Of course, there's going to be a height differential issue if they're too tall, but like, you know, again, instead of trying to grab the uniform, like just get around the neck, so that when you turn, it's a natural clinch.
I guess it depends on what you've worked out with your partner and whether, you know, you and your partner decided you're going to forearm each other in the chin or, you know, face to use it. Okay, so then my thought is there are 2 points at which you could do this strike that Vera's talking about. We're going to rotate this way though. So we're going to do it this way. So Bijangyo Chiki Dechi. So I'm attacking you. So we're here, boom, boom. So first time is right here. As she's stepping in, I could try to just, you know, I could just forearm it here, right? That's one option, right? The other one is to still do the block here, and then mostly like we would for 16 step in here, and instead of lifting with this hand, driving there, like we would, like that's how I do my 16 step at the major artery. So you could do it, and those are 2 options at which you could do it. I find that my partner, when I try to do things like that first form to stop her with my partners start getting a lot more resistant, and their technique starts looking uglier because they start going too soon to avoid it. And then I'm not really demonstrating what I wanted to demonstrate. So test taking versus counters, I mean, real life counters, you know, where are we going to put it? All right, other questions? Thank you, Vera. Yeah, Sarah.
So I had a question about stopping the block, the technique versus continuing it. The way we've always done it is a continuous movement, not a block. So when we go to do it, keep moving. We don't actually do a formal block. Is this
Right,
like
okay,
one of the same sorts of things? Like it depends on where you are and what you learned. Like, is there a preference one way or the other?
Okay, so that Amanda, as we started doing it, Amanda started to step around to the side like that. My thought on that is that the only time that someone can really do that is if your throw is crap in the first place. I mean, if you're like basically, you know, if she's going to come in for a bad forward body drop, then fine, I can do what I want to her, right? So yeah, when you do randori with a white belt or a yellow belt or a blue belt, sure, go ahead, do that, right? But if you're with someone who knows how to do a forward body drop and is turning into it, then I think that's going to be a harder sell to make it. I mean, it's just not going to look as good, right? So when she really, like we're here, she's going to go for that forward body drop. I've got to fight it, right? Because if I end up a little like this, then I can't do it. So as she comes in for that forward body drop, I've got to block it somehow. And now I can do, and I threw in that hand on the face just for Vera.
Yeah, it's an effective hand.
So that's my answer. So I want the thrower to be doing good technique so that your counter looks like it has to work rather than getting a little bit too, yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. Okay. Just to throw out a counter thought to that, counterpoint, that we talk about sometimes is the idea of stopping them sooner rather than having to do a hard stop. And so I know that when Rick and I are going through these, sometimes we talk about, well, rather than doing a hard stop, and not this one necessarily, what if we just started the technique like a half a second earlier before they really are getting into a strong throw? What are your thoughts on that?
Then it just comes to, did they really, I mean, so I can see what you're saying, and there's a lot of times when we're doing randori and she'll go for a throw to start it and she'll realize she doesn't have it and she stops, right? And she goes, right, so I blocked it before she got very far, right? So that would be a real life situation of exactly what you're talking about.
But specific for counter throw forms, right?
Yeah. So I don't have a great answer for that.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we can do it, but we're trying to demonstrate the, go ahead.
Okay.
And then I think Vera or Ray have something to say on that, but.
My thought on that, I like that idea because I think too is black belts where you can sort of like predict a lot of these.
I can't hear you very well.
Sorry. I like that thought. I see where it comes from because I think, I mean, not so much in counter throw form, but in randori, I think a lot of times I'm like, I could see this throw coming from like a mile away, right? So when you get good at knowing what's about to come, I think that really does work. I think for the sake of counter throw form, which I don't have a ton of experience with, if you want to make it more formy, you know, then maybe you would do more of a hard block. And if you're thinking more like a table, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that there's more throws where you get to do that kind of anticipation bypass, and fewer where you're doing a block and you've got to demonstrate the ability that you can stop a throw. That maybe, you know, this is one where you're going to stop the throw because, like, you know, number 3, number whatever, you got to do that quick bypass where you showed how quick you were around it. I don't know. I don't have a good. It's just like, you know, we vary our.
Yeah, those are all good points.
Okay, Vera, did you have a?
I think the principle for the counter throw forms, right, is to be able to do actions that you can extrapolate. And I will say that, you know, even though it's a very clearly defined forward body drop, when you're doing this on randori, as to Rob's point, right, it's very quick and you're going to probably fake in for something else. And then usually for the forward body drop, it's a head move, right? So they're going to knock that person's head. And so that quick recovery of getting the person who is throwing to get them off balance, right, to just stop their center of mass, it's a good stall for other techniques, right? So I think that's another thing about like 16-step and counter throw. These are forms so that you can flow into things, but they're not entities unto themselves. You want to extrapolate the principle of why you're doing that so that when you do it for other techniques, you can, you know, it buys you time. Because, you know, as Rob, you know, I'm old. Rob is always going to be younger than me. He's always better than me anyway. He's going to come in. I'm like, let me just hit his ass. to slow him down so that I can do a counter, right? So I think that is, I think, again, it's the principle of these incremental moves that you do, as well as the whole unit.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
all. That was really helpful in terms of understanding both how I would do it and also how I teach it to our students. This is the first time I'm teaching counter throw to black belts for us, because we now have a bunch of white belts, excuse me, a bunch of first downs who are starting to get ready to practice. So I'm just trying to understand both why we're doing it a certain way, right? Before I was just trying to figure it out. Now I'm at the stage where I'm trying to understand why we're doing it a certain way so that I can help explain it when I teach. So this is all really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and the short answer to a lot of this stuff is going to be you have the option to do it either way. Just make sure that it looked like an initial good setup at least, and that the counter worked, whether that's flowing around it or blocking it. That's okay. You can do either one. Very few of it, is it that set?
All right. Thanks everyone.
I'm fidgeting too. When I'm talking, I'm fidgeting. All right, so
She's cracking her knuckles. I was hoping you couldn't hear it.
No, we can't hear it. We can't hear it.
Okay,
so
good.
Let's do the next one. We'll try to get through one more in like 4 or 5 minutes and see how it goes. This is a fun one. So Bidedu Chigi is stomach throw, and we're going to counter that with major inner reap. So you guys all know stomach throw because we do it in the 16 steps. So the first part of it is going to look exactly like that. So Bidedu Chigi, stomach throw. Yeah.
Bidedu Chigi, stomach throw.
Puss. All right, so you all have seen that. Okay, so now we're going to do major inner reap. 2 approaches to this one. One blocks a little and then does the major inner reap. The other one flows through and does the major inner reap. We'll do the blocking one first because that you'll get a little bit of a more chance to see where the body's moving and how the major inner reap works. And then we'll do the flow through one, okay? In both cases, I'm gonna be doing the major inner reap with the right leg to her standing left leg. Her right leg ends up on my hip, right? So just to walk through it slowly. Bidedu Chigi Dechi. Puss. 1, 2. She comes in here, right? And I'm going to be doing the major inner reap with the right leg. Okay, so we're going to do the block version and then we'll do the flow version. All right. Bidedu Chigi Dechi. Puss. Block. And then reap. Okay. I don't know why she's not stepping back like she does on 16 step, but we'll figure that out later. So one more time, we'll do the block. On the block, let's rotate a little bit. So we'll do it this way. Bidedu Chigi Dechi. Boom. I'm gonna drop my hips down, bend my knees, grab onto this foot a little bit. I might even then pull it to the outside as I come in for the major inner reap. Your partner will suddenly go bam because nothing's holding them up. That foot disappears that they're pushing off of. The foot that's on the ground disappears and they're just going to drop like a rock. So I really try to make sure I've got a good grip on this collar, and I kind of try to squat a little bit to let them down more gently. So one more time on that one. Bidedu Chigi Dechi. Puss. Walk. Reap. All right. Questions on that so far? Do you want to try it a couple times, then we'll do the slide around one? Yeah, go ahead. Wait. Kobey had a comment about pronunciation.
Just because I was looking at it recently, I think it should be Bededui, not Bidedu. But
Bededui. Okay, all right. So Bededui Chigi, we'll fix that. I don't know. I'm not Korean. That's why I say it in English.
Wait, you missed Ray laughing hysterically.
Because Ray is having flashbacks to Pat Chu, so I know. So that's okay. All right. Maya, question.
I wanted to ask you, do you push your right hip into the in between towards her legs when you are blocking?
A little bit, yeah. Mostly.
You're swinging.
Yeah, so she comes in with this foot, boom, and I'm mostly just squatting, okay? Because most of the time when they come in for the throw, they're like right in front of you anyway. So I'm just kind of squatting and trying to bring my hips forward like this. I'm not really stepping forward yet because I actually want to save that little bit of shoulder going forward so that I can do the major inner reap, okay? All right, if you have a partner, let's give that a shot a couple of times,
Thank you.
and then we'll do the, and then quickly we're gonna move on. All right. Bededwi chiggy. Stomach throw. Us.
Did we shiggy ditchy?
Sure.
Us.
Us. That's all right. All right, one more time.
Did we shiggy ditchy? Us.
Us. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance just to do it a couple of times to get the feel for it. Any questions? Then I'll show the flow through version.
What's your right hand doing as the counter thrower? Are you grabbing onto something? Are you trying to reach all the way to the collar?
My right hand as the counter thrower. Yeah, grabbing onto the collar and trying to basically hold them up so that they can't drop down. Because, yeah.
Any thoughts about grabbing like the belt? I was just thinking if someone's actually dropping in lower for a stomach throw, their upper body might actually be pretty far away from you. I was just thinking about what
grabbing down here and trying to hold up here for me is going to be harder. If I can, because if I can get this and now kind of hold them this way, they can slide down, but they can't drop back. If I am holding down here, she's going to throw her upper body backwards and get too much momentum. The thought that I had in my head is that a good reason to do maybe the stopping one, to think about it, is like the BJJ pulling guard, right? So as I come in here, if I can't get my stomach throw, I'm just going to sit back here like this, and she's got to stop me from doing that, right? And so if she holds me up and holds me in, I can't drop back as much. I'm more underneath her, and now it's easier for her to pass my guard because my block isn't, my leg's not holding her off as well. Anyway, think about that. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. All right, let's do the flow through one, and then I want to get to roundhouse kicks. So the flow through one is fun. Remember, the basic idea is that, without Amanda for a second, block, they're coming around like this and sitting down for that stomach throw. So what we're going to do on this one is we're just going to follow them through. Don't even grab the leg, just try to get grips on the upper body, pull them up just a little bit more, and then continue through here, okay? So now let's do it. One more time. We'll move just a little closer. So, is it a harder fall? I don't know. It's a little bit more surprising, but remember on both of them, there's that little bit of dropping like a stone thing. Give it a shot. So remember the idea, she's coming in and I'm gonna pull her around the circle and let this leg catch up, boom, and do that. So it becomes a lot more like some of the kick defenses we would do. So if she gave me a roundhouse kick, right, it's more like this kick defense than it is the major inner reap that we might otherwise normally do. Give it a shot, try it. You can also check it out on Instagram because Kobey and I have a great video of us doing this. All right, your turn. Bededwi.
Bededwi.
I did it wrong too.
That's
Plus. Again.
Bededwi Didi. Excuse me. Bededwi Chegi Dechi. That's
Plus. All right, one more time and then we'll see if there are questions. I'm not watching, I'm just giving Amanda a chance. Plus.
Bededwi Chegi Dechi. That's
Plus. All right, questions on that? Vera, question?
Just an observation.
Yeah.
This is still a form, so everyone needs to keep their hands up while, protectively, is that an adverb? And I also noticed that when people kick, make sure you kick high enough so it's worth blocking. And if you kick, don't drop your hand. So that's another tick. You kick and you drop your hand, which is just asking to be hit in the head. So don't forget your basics, right? And then when you're blocking someone's kick, don't, unless they're super big, don't block the kick with both hands. So like protect your head, very precious.
All right, questions on the major inner reap counter? Thank you, Vera. None. Okay, all right, maybe next month you'll have questions on this one. That's okay. Again, this is just an exercise to show what some of the options are for playing with the major inner reap. You can block or you can slide through, right? And so either one can make sense depending on how you work it out with your partner. Either one works. Any questions? Okay, we have about 15 minutes left. So we're gonna do roundhouse kick. Let's see. Why don't we start with, I was going to take a volunteer for the third person, so each person could have 5 minutes. Does someone want to volunteer to talk about how they teach roundhouse kick with a little bit of demo stuff if you need to, and then give us a chance to kick something for a minute or two? Anyone? I'm looking at Vin or Vera or Ray or Mayan Predrag, since I pushed these other people, since we already got others going.
In the room that we're in, if we kicked anything, Ray would break my monitor.
Okay, all right. So he'll just look at us as though we're not good enough, but he won't show us. All right, that's okay. That's okay. All right, so we're gonna start with, let's go ahead and start with Sarah. Sarah's raising her hand. So we'll go with Sarah and then we'll go to Kobey.
So I want to start because my partner wants to leave because he doesn't want to stay. So one of the biggest things that I'm sure all of you see when you're teaching new students for the roundhouse and even advanced students is the hip movement. And so what I found really helpful is breaking it down. Some of you may also do this, is the counting, where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just break down every single part. That's our biggest help at the beginning when they're learning, is we have them all face the same direction so that everyone is doing exactly the same thing. This is like white belt level, right? New students. So then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then as they start figuring it out, we start focusing on the hip. We also talk about looking at their back pocket as they go to kick. And then we talk about keeping the knee in the same place as they move the foot. And we use that as an important factor for differentiating a roundhouse from the side kick, because we explain how the roundhouse, we move the foot and the knee stays put, whereas the side kick, the foot goes out in a straight line and the knee moves. So those are just the two things I wanted to share with the group about how we teach roundhouse.
Okay, can you add a little bit on what some of the angles are for the hip or leg? And,
yeah.
And also when you're teaching low ranks, where do you want that foot to end up relative to, let's say, that center line, center of mass point?
So this, as I'm sure you all have seen this, right? It depends who we're talking to. So when we're talking to white belts, we talk about them hitting the center line, right? Not necessarily going through it like we would with even yellow, green belts, but at the very beginning, we're really focusing on getting the knee up, the knee high, right? So you can store a plate on it, rotate out, back, rotate back and down. As they start increasing rank, we talk about cutting through that line so that going from like shoulder to shoulder on the person they're hitting. So if Ella is my demonstration buddy, I was gonna say dummy, but I don't think she would do that. She stands right there. I don't know if this angle will work. But the idea is actually, I'm standing right in front of me. So the idea is, hopefully you can see my foot coming through, right? Normally, your foot goes from one end through to the other end. Actually, it's hard to demonstrate on her when I'm on camera, so you can go. Sorry. Come on. Okay. Thank you. Welcome. Okay. She's 13. She did not want to be here, so I appreciate that she put up with it even for the 40 minutes she was here. So as they go to yellow and green and blue, then we start talking about going through the target. So now we're trying to think maybe a 45, 50 degree angle. So they get their leg up, right? By now, hopefully we've gotten to the point where they're turning their hip over, right? They're getting their knee up high. And then we talk about going through the target. We do a lot with paddles at this point so that they understand the concept of going through rather than ending at. Hopefully you all know what I mean by that, right? So that they actually go through the target rather than ending at the spot they're aiming for. And then as we start getting into higher ranks, blues and brown and preparing red belts, we start talking about how to get more power into it. So we really want them to get that motion first, because if they don't get that motion, we end up with people, I'm sure you've all seen, they were going like this with their hips still straight and they're trying to kick, or they rotate and then they kick and they're kind of turning all the way around. At the same time, we're trying to make sure there isn't any arms going in weird directions. And so that power, so they slowly build up the mechanics from the lower ranks and then build up power as they move up in rank. And so going through the target, making sure that as they kick, they're not rotating in funny ways or rotating in funny ways as they kick. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. And then one more follow-up, and then I'm going to go to Kobey. Follow-up question, and that is, so let's say you've got that brown red belt and you're trying to get them to increase power. Other than kicking through, let's say shoulder to shoulder, so kicking through the center, what are your tips for how they should generate power? So what do you tell them to do with their body to generate power? Yeah.
So one of the biggest things we find is that people try to kick just with their legs. Again, I'm sure all of you have seen that when you have students, right? They come up and their legs just move rather than using their hips. And what we really try to get them to teach them is two things. One, we force them to either hold their uniform or put their hand on the kicking hip. This works, by the way, for side kick, is to put their hand on the kicking hip, the hip of the kicking leg. And so now they can't use their arms to counter their movement. And so they have to use their hips to get the power. So either hand on the hip or hand on the uniform. And we find that if we do that, suddenly wherever they've been faking it, it doesn't work anymore. Because usually when they're faking it for power, they use their hands to counter. If you get rid of the hands as a source of power, now they have to use their hip. Because otherwise their body doesn't turn, right? You have to start getting your hip into it. So that's how I often teach the higher ranks, as if they're still not doing the getting the power into it, or if they're counter rotating, or if they're over rotating, I make them take their arms out of the equation so that they can't cheat. And then if they don't have the arms to cheat with, right, to get power from their arms swinging back and forth, suddenly without putting their hips into it, we really start talking about how the hips are where the power comes from. Any questions?
Cool. All right. I mean, and I really like that, because a lot of it, like I tried doing this and then they start jerking their uniform around. So I mean, as it kind of goes against the keeping the hands up thing, but for like a temporary thing, that it seems harder to jerk your hands around. So I may try that one.
Try it for side kick. It's doubly effective when you're teaching side kick. I force them to put their hand on the kicking hip, and then all of the flailing counter rotations reduce dramatically. It works for roundhouse as well, and I've done it for that. But this side kick thing, the arm on the hip, I actually originally developed it for side kick.
Okay, cool.
Again, it's
Look at
entirely
Bill.
for developing the skills, not obviously your hands should be up.
Yeah. Cool, cool. Okay. Thank you very much. Kobey.
Yeah, so the main drill I want to share, I've been doing this basically as the first drill I teach, even before we go through sort of the parts of the kick or even doing it across the room. And that's standing up against a wall, leaning on it, and turning, trying to get the top of the foot and the shin all the way against the wall, and also looking at the support leg, turning the support leg all the way. And I find if I introduce this before even thinking of it as a kick, where so people, they can't put a lot of power because they obviously don't want to smash their foot into the wall. And they've got balance, so they're not worried about balance too much. They can lean on the wall if they want to, but it's really just working on that turning the support leg and getting that foot all the way across into a position where obviously this is stopping it at about the center line. So later we have to work on going through the center line, but it gets them moving that hip, turning the hip over so that when we do go to just doing it in the air or on a paddle or whatever, they've at least felt that turn rather than just having people swinging legs here, which sometimes happens. So yeah, that's the first drill I've been doing. Since Rob was asking about teaching more advanced students, one of the drills I really like for figuring out how to generate power off of the kicking leg is the quick step back pop forward drill. And we've done this sometimes as like the Taekwondo sparring drill where you're trying to kick each other, but you can also just do it in the air where my kicking leg is actually going to start forward. I'm going to step back and immediately pop off of it and bring the knee high. And even the first couple of times I won't even worry about doing roundhouse. I'm just trying to really pop off that leg and bring the knee up. And then as they're comfortable with that, I can then start bringing it up and bringing it over. And that's sort of training the quick twitch pop off the ground so that they can really pop into the kick as they get going later. The third thing, which I can't demonstrate without a partner that I often do is when they're just so sort of after the wall drill, after we've done a couple passes across the room, maybe kicked a paddle or shield a couple times. If someone's still having problems turning the hip over, I'll kneel in front of them, have them do a kick slowly and catch it, and then I can manipulate their shin sort of angle. This is especially when people, are kicking this way. I can sort of grab the shin and physically turn it sideways, let them hop on their foot and sort of feel how it feels to be in the totally sideways position, just to sort of some proprioceptive training if people can't figure out what it feels like to get all the way over. So those are the drills that I usually do. Questions, comments, other things?
Questions, anyone?
I will put a vote for that, like hopping back and rebound drill. Like that was extremely helpful to me, probably around like blue or brown belt. Mostly, partly for power, but also a lot for speed and mental reflexes on kicks. Especially as a partner drill where you're kicking each other like back and forth. Like that was really helpful for me to like be able to like do it fast enough for sparring.
I guess I can add something that I'm struggling with, which is figuring out how to transfer that same amount of thing into a front leg roundhouse, where I'm really trying to not just come across directly 90 degrees sideways, but sort of spiral out forward a little bit and give myself enough power and time and pop. I think I've trained myself with the rear leg to be able to push off of it, but I have trouble pushing in the front leg, and I have trouble teaching people to really push with the front leg forward into it. Not that the front leg roundhouse is ever as powerful as the rear leg, but sort of working on that. So if people have suggestions, I'd love to hear them.
I've got a suggestion for that, Kobey. It really depends on how flexible you are. So if one of the things that I have people do is elevate their knee higher than their actual target. And so a little bit different from what Sarah was doing. I tend to have them imagine they're aiming at the target with their knee. So instead of starting and bring their knee either to the body line or center line, let's have a target and imagine that my knee is going to go and start to aim at the target. Now, for what Kobey is talking about in terms of the front leg roundhouse kick, It really depends on how flexible you are. If you're really flexible, then you can bring it up higher and get a hip rotation into it, which is what I usually do because I used to be pretty flexible.
Another thing to think about too is when we're teaching upper ranks, especially Ray does this much, makes a point of doing this, is not to telegraph, right? And so all these things when you're teaching, of course, you're going to telegraph because you're exaggerating it, but then they'll come to the point where you're just bringing the knee up and then waggle, waggle, waggle. Am I going to do a side kick? Am I going to do a front kick? Am I going to do a roundhouse kick? And then that's where you really emphasize using the support leg, which tends to be overextended, too straight, and also to teach in such a way that they don't, no offense to Taekwondo people, but don't do the Taekwondo thing where you're whoa and you kick back and you fly back at the same time. It's very impressive, but there's no impact, right? So it's really for that upper rank move. It's like, how do you not telegraph, and then how do you power off by using the support leg? The support leg is often underappreciated.
Yeah.
We start doing that when they get to kind of high blue, brown, red, because we start sparring with them more, and then you can see the telegraph from a mile away. And so then we start talking about kind of the opposite of what we teach in the beginning, right? At the beginning, we teach this like very specific order. This is how it's done. And now it's like, all right, this is where you start, but there's 8 ways you can go from it. And so make sure you're in that neutral position. So it's funny because we teach them a bunch of stuff at the beginning to get the basics down. And then sometimes we have to unteach. I mean, we have to undo what we taught later, because what we taught was just basics. And the basics, people learn differently at the beginning than they do later when they can see the bigger picture, when they have a lot more body control, when they understand stuff better. And so we have to go in there and say, look, if you start off here, we know what you're doing. There's only one thing out of this. Whereas if you start off here, right, like you said, you can go front, you can turn, you can do a lot of different stuff. So I find it interesting because we often have to go and, like you said, unteach a little bit of what we taught at the beginning to get them to understand how to not telegraph.
And as someone who's very uncoordinated, I felt like mortally betrayed when I got to the point, because I'm like, damn it, really? I think after this, couldn't you have started this way somehow? Yeah, it's a very, very challenging, super, super challenging.
Yeah. I just thought something for you, Kobey. Another way of getting power into that front leg roundhouse kick is to not focus on a kick, to focus on a pullback. That's a way of accelerating the actual kick.
Can you explain that a little bit more? I didn't quite follow what you meant by the pullback.
We have no room in here.
Hold on, we're gonna try some. I'll hold the camera somehow.
No.
No, you're not. Okay, you're just gonna be super flexible. Okay, fine.
So if I'm kicking my front leg, I'm kicking, right? Instead of focusing on the kick, I focus on kicking that kick back. That actually accelerates my kick. It comes back faster. When I focus on a kick, I tend to throw my body forward, which is another way of getting power in your front leg roundhouse kick, is to basically do it almost like a push kick, where my support leg, and that's something that I think we have a lot of problems with getting even our upper ranks to get real feel for, which is how nimble your support leg should be, or can be, in terms of
I like that phrase.
Kick, or the type of kick and the power of the kick, because it's not the kicking leg that's the power generator per se. My support, you guys can't see this.
I am.
My support leg can really set which kind of kick I'm doing. Roundhouse, axe, side. And basically, like, push my body forward by sort of shutting my support leg. That flings my body weight forward more. Does that make sense?
Sorry, videographer now having problems finding us. Okay, here we go. You want to stand there? Stand there.
That's fine.
Okay. All right.
I had some follow-up questions that I was going to throw out there, but it's 9:30. So you know what? It's always best leaving you guys with some thoughts and questions. And I know I've got my questions and thoughts, but I'm not going to share them because we'll let them percolate and marinate and consider them. So I want to thank you guys all very much for joining us. I don't know if next time we're going to stick with counter throws. I feel like I've been teaching counter throws now for like 4 months to you guys, and you're probably tired of hearing me. We should come up with another topic. So message me, email me, text me, whatever. Let me know other topics you want to do. One that I know that we're going to come up with We're gonna do some more just basic boxing stuff, whether even just how to do a basic hook. That you can see Vera down there. Or I don't know where she is relative to me. So you can see Vera there. She wanted that. Another request for teaching how you teach air falls or falls. I think some of that was COVID context, but even just how to teach air falls is a great topic. I'd love to see Ray do an air fall in that little room right there. But anyway, lots of ideas that I'd love to hear more about from you guys about what we can do. And more groundwork. Yeah, I mean, we can always do groundwork, if any specific requests, but let me know. And if you also have just instructors you want to hear from, yes, I've been trying to email Chuck Buse and get him to volunteer to come in. So if you keep asking for Chuck Buse, then I get a reason to push him some more, but he doesn't even reply to my emails. But you know, that's between me and you guys. So we'll just say that for
Peterson. Try to get Chris Peterson in.
Chris, he doesn't have video. I don't know. We can try.
But hey, Rob, one more
Yeah.
point, just in reference to the roundhouse topic that you had today. This is actually a topic that Norman had raised as far as having within UCB, that we have, diverse, because, all of you came from various generations from UCB, but the diversity of how we do roundhouse kicks has drifted. Oh my God, good, bad, and different, but the spectrum is wide. And he has mentioned that, and maybe that's something that you can bring him in and talk about more. Although
West Coast style, East Coast style.
Although I mean, the reality is that with
How to teach a 60-year-old versus a 5-year-old.
yeah, and then like as you get older or with hip surgery, you can't do certain things in terms of roundhouse kicks. I mean, I like what Kobey was saying about like bringing it around, which is how I normally do it, because I can get my hip really high and drop my weight down on it. So even a front kick has some oomph because there's some weight transfer. But if you're not flexible, I mean, you're dropping your hip down to what, knee level roundhouse kick? I don't know. So something to keep in mind.
Let's end it there. Thank you all for joining me. If you can take a second, stand up. Today, can you have a good night? See you
Thanks,
next
everyone.
time. Thanks for joining, everyone. Thank you.
Well,
Bye.